We just started recording, so thank you, Nancy. Okay, well, we're going to kind of get started here. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the applicant workshop for the 2025 round of Cultural Star. I will be sharing my screen, and before that, we'll probably start out with some introductions, and we won't have time to go through the whole room because happily there's a lot of you here, which is great news. And so I invite anyone here attending the applicant workshop to introduce yourself in the chat. And if you're a first-time applicant, you can say that, or you don't have to say that. But it's nice to see who's here. So I invite you to do that while I begin sharing my screen. Okay, so welcome. I think the way this is going to be more like a casual conversation. I want there to be enough time, and I want people to have all their questions answered. My hope is at the end that we have everyone enthusiastic and ready to start your application in Zoom grants for this current round we're going into for Cultural Star. And I'll probably go slide by slide and pause at natural points to see if anyone has questions pertaining to the slides that we just looked at. I have a team here and we're going to introduce ourselves, but they will be paying attention to hands up and questions that are forming in the chat, and then we can pause and take those, and there'll be plenty of time for Q&A at the end. Let me make sure.
Jessica, you're on mute.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, thank you, Nancy. I'm Jessica Larson Johnston. I invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat. Now I'm going to repeat myself, but you didn't hear me the first time. We won't have time to go through everyone in the room, but I'm going to introduce myself, and I'm going to have the STAR staff introduce themselves. But it's always good to see who's in the meeting, and if you want to introduce yourself in the chat, and if you want to let us know if you're a first-time applicant, that's always kind of fun to know. If you don't want to share that, that's fine too. But I'm Jessica and Larson Johnston. I am in year 2 of working on the Cultural Star program as the program coordinator. I was with the city before that, but in this current position, I'm in year 2. And the STAR program with the city is housed out of the Planning and Economic Department, and Neighborhood STAR and Cultural STAR are the 2 STAR programs, and we really have aligned ourselves so that our timelines are all in alignment, and so we really think of ourselves as a STAR team. And some of us work more on Cultural Star, and there's a few that work more on Neighborhood Star, but we like the direction we're heading where there can be some overlap. And so we're going to introduce ourselves because you might be working with any number of us once the application period is over, and you might see us during interviews. So I will tee it off to Nancy, and then Nancy, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Grace and Naya.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nancy Vang, and I am a Management Assistant 1. I assist with both STAR programs, so you've probably seen my name a lot on emails coming through Zoom grants, and it's nice to meet all of you. And I probably have been a project manager on a couple of your projects as well. So welcome, and it's nice to meet all of you.
All right, I'll go up next. My name is Grace Bubel. I'm a project manager with the STAR team. I'll be working with Cultural Star and Neighborhood Star. So I work with our recipients who receive funding to get under contract and through the disbursement process for their grants. So it's great to meet you all, and thank you for joining us today. And now I'll pass it off to Naya.
Thanks, Grace. Hey, everyone. I'm Naya Hardiman. I'm a project manager with the STAR team. I primarily work on Neighborhood STAR projects, but I'm here today in the workshop just in case there's any people who might have some questions about whether they should apply to Cultural or Neighborhood STAR. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the agenda for today is outlined. We're going to overview the program. We're going to go through the history, the program timeline for 2025. We'll go through the goals. We'll go through project types. We'll talk about the cultural district and what we mean. It's mentioned often if you're a new applicant. We'll talk about, I have several slides that just do a high level look at some of our main guidelines for the program. We'll talk a little about the C-STAR Cultural Star Advisory Board and the evaluation criteria of which your applications are ranked. And then we'll go through some brief things on compliance and insurance requirements. And then we have, and Jennifer, you didn't introduce yourself yet, but you will soon. We have our account executive with Zoom Grants. Zoom Grants is the platform in which we run our applications. And so Jennifer will take over the presentation near the end and talk about all things Zoom Grants and can answer questions. And then we have a slide about some new things this year. We have one kind of major change for Cultural Star that you might be used to that we're changing. So we'll talk about that. And there'll be plenty of time for Q&A. I might have been muted when I said this earlier, but this is going to be more like an easygoing conversation. I'm hoping that everyone leaves this presentation ready if they felt like they weren't ready to hop onto Zoom Grants and start their application. And so I'm hoping you all get to that point. So we'll probably pause after some slides and my team will let me know where there's questions. Raise your hand. You can put questions in the chat. I'm not going to have you wait until the very end. We will take questions as we go. So don't worry, just keep your hand up until we can get to it.
Hey, Jessica, it looks like you muted again.
I don't know why that's happening, you guys. I'm so sorry. But a brief history is in 1993, the Minnesota State Legislature authorized the city of St. Paul to levy a half-cent sales tax to improve the St. Paul River complex and create the sales tax revitalization program, which is what we call STAR. STAR funds support. A big chunk of it does go to the capital activities of the River Center and the economic needs in St. Paul. A big chunk goes to Neighborhood STAR, our sister program, and that's made up of grants for capital projects to further residential, cultural, commercial, and economic development in downtown St. Paul and St. Paul neighborhoods. And then a chunk goes to Cultural Star, which are grants to arts and cultural organizations in St. Paul. We primarily target nonprofit arts and cultural organizations. 80% of the funding that we have goes to the cultural district of downtown St. Paul, which we will talk about in a few slides. And it goes for programming, operating expenses, and capital expenses for your organization. The 2025 Cultural Star program timeline is as follows. The application is open until Friday, May 2nd at 4 p.m. We accentuate this every year, but we encourage people to start their application early. Do not wait till the end. The system sometimes has a tendency to crash or with too many applications coming in on Friday, May 2nd. So we always tell people start early. That gives you enough time to reach out to us if you have questions. And just feel good about having a complete application. We'll talk about this later, but there isn't going to be a period of time where you're going to be able to submit and then go back and change things. So more than ever, we want people to start early, get in touch with us if you have questions, and then you can, just do your application over a period of time. The application interviews, everyone that has an eligible application for Cultural Star will get an interview with the Cultural Star Board. These interviews will be in May and June. Once we have all eligible applications, we will set you up with an interview that is in person. And we are not going to do a lot of we're just going to assign a day, a time, and hopefully you or someone in your organization can come to the interview. We will offer virtual if necessary, but we do really, we like having the in person. The board loves seeing people in person, so that's our preference. The mayor and city council approval is tentative, but hopefully fall in 2025. As many of you might know, in 2024, we didn't have a council resolution on the recommendations until November 6th. So we say tentative. We're hoping for a variety of reasons that will speed up this year, but there are no guarantees. The earliest project start date, so anything that you want to do with your project that you want to be eligible, if you are recommended, starts on August 1st, 2025. So nothing can start, you can have things start in your project before that, but it can't go towards the funds you're getting. August 1st is the start date, and the last project end date for special projects and organizational developmental projects is July 31st, 2026. And for capital projects, it's another full year. So there's 2 years in a capital project. And so the deadline there would be July 31st, 2027. And I'm going to pause because I do believe I saw a hand. And if Grace and Nancy, you could help kind of tee up any questions right now.
I had seen a hand up, but it went back down. So
Okay.
Whoever had their hand up, if they could repeat it again, or raise their hand again if they have a question. But Jessica, there is one in the chat. It says, is August 1st a confirmed date?
Yes. Okay, which leads to maybe questions you might have about timing considerations. This is really important, especially in lieu of the timing that happened in 2024. If you have a project that has an event that's occurring in the first several months of our eligibility period that starts August 1st, 2025, please be planful because it's likely to be October or November before final recommendations are out. And again, we have the eligibility period in here a number of times because it's just important to consider. So August, September, October, if that is when your event is happening, you will not know if you have funding. And you will have to figure out a way, and most organizations can, that you'll be able to put your event on. And so your application, if you're recommended, would be more of a kind of after the fact, like a reimbursement of your project. Okay, the program goals of Cultural Star are to strengthen the arts and cultural sector, to promote economic vitality in St. Paul, and support downtown as a vital cultural center. We do that by 4 main ways within the program. We do it by promoting a broad range of cultural offerings, by building and diversifying audiences, by producing a long-term impact, and by leveraging additional financial support. There are 3 types of projects. When you start your application, it'll be one of the first things you're asked is what kind of project are you applying for? Is it a special project or organizational development or a capital project? And special projects are quality arts activities in any discipline. I mean, this could be performing arts, festivals, music programs, choir or choral groups, plays, film, anything that has a public facing also event would fall under special projects. It's the bulk of what our applications tend to be. I think probably 85 to 90% of our applications usually tend to come in as special projects. But there are 2 other categories, and organizational development are activities to strengthen, grow, and develop your organization. So I think of this, a good way to think of organizational development would be like operating expenses, anything that's kind of building the capacity of your organization. And some examples of things we've funded in the past under this project area would be like strategic planning efforts, maybe you have a position you're looking to start, and it could be seed money for that position. It could be new computer systems that will help your organization build and grow. So anything that's sort of operating like that. And then we take capital project proposals, and those would be physical improvements, permanently installed equipment. Public art would fall under that. Anything that is like brick and mortar, it's permanently affixed, it cannot be moved. So if you're thinking, and we've had applications in the past that were like capital project as the proposal, but it seemed more organizational development type. So just think really hard when you're applying what it is. If it can be moved, it would not be a capital project. It has to just be a physical improvement. Just some examples of that would be maybe you're making ADA improvements to your space. We funded in the past like a build out of a theater. It could be lighting. It could be permanent theater seats. Those type of things would fall under capital projects. Are there any questions? I'm going to pause right now in case there are any questions on project types.
Hey, Jessica, I saw a question in the chat from someone more so related to program timeline, but in the chat it says, so basically if your program occurs in August/September, you are taking a leap of faith in terms of funding, and you may need to find alternative funds to pay for it if the request is not approved.
Absolutely. And I would in my head just say to yourselves, if we're going on what the timing was in 2024, August, September, October, and it could still be November, we understand the challenge of that. We worked all year on trying to figure out ways to speed that up. There were things we hope are different this year. We had a brand new council last year. It took longer it sits in different places before final recommendations are out. We'll talk a little bit about the advisory board soon, but the advisory board is just that, advisory. And once they're done, we sort of magically put a bunch of spreadsheets together that show what they have recommended, and then it goes to the mayor's office, and then it goes from the mayor's office to the council. And so with the new council, with the recommendations going to the mayor's office right around his budget time last year, all these things felt like it really slowed the program up. We're hoping that our timing can be a little different, and that a council in its second year just has more time under their belt and will hopefully get through that process quicker. But absolutely, it's a challenge. We understand it. But yes, you have to take a leap of faith, and you will have to figure out a way to have your event covered in case you aren't recommended. Anybody else before I move on just to talk about the cultural district? Okay, so the cultural district, it's talked about a lot, and you may be wondering,
Jessica,
what is it?
I think there might be one more question.
Okay.
Ronald, did you want to ask your question? I see your hands raised. Oh, it's in the chat. The question is, are expenses that have been covered by sponsorship funding eligible for reimbursement by the Cultural Star Fund?
Can you repeat that again, Naya?
Are expenses that have been covered by sponsorship funding eligible for reimbursement by Cultural Star Funds?
Nancy or Grace, with your more extensive experience, can one of you want to answer that one?
In terms of this fiscal sponsorship fee, that is eligible for reimbursement. If you have other expenses in mind, you can reach out to staff directly, and we can go over that with you if there are other specific expenses. But in terms of like the fiscal sponsorship fee, then yes, that can be reimbursed through the program.
Donald, does that answer your question?
Sort of, kind of, but what I'm thinking of, because we won't know about any kind of recommendations until after the event for the Rondo Block Party that we have scheduled for August 2nd, of course, we're going to need to be able to fund a lot of those expenses prior to determining whether or not we're going to be recommended for funding. And so a lot of those expenses can be potentially covered by sponsorship dollars that we receive beforehand. And so outside of the fiscal sponsor fee, are those expenses covered? Say we have a sponsor that funds our staging. Will that staging expense be eligible for reimbursement? Can we submit that as a reimbursable fee? Or will that be covered under whatever kind of recommendation we have in terms of the Cultural Star funding?
So if it's a cost that's related to the proposal that you're submitting,
Yes.
and if you get recommended for funding and it is an expense that you incur within the eligible period, so after August 1st, then it would be reimbursable through the program if you include it as part of your scope of work when you get under contract.
Okay, so it can't be incurred until after August 1st.
Correct.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
There
Okay.
could be some exception to that in the case where it's like your event is August 1st and like you get invoiced like July 31st, but you didn't pay on it until after August. Like there might be some exception, but again, in those situations, reach out to us and we can work that out with you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the Downtown Cultural District. The cultural, go ahead.
Sorry, Jessica, I think I saw that Carrie had her hand up.
Oh, sure.
Carrie, did you have your hand up?
No, I put it back down, but thanks, Nancy.
Okay, and then there is one more. Oh, this is in regards to the cultural district, so Jessica can continue.
Okay. The cultural district is outlined in red on the screen, and it's defined as the geographic area bordered by Interstate 94 to the north, the Lafayette Bridge to the east, Harriet and Raspberry Islands to the south, and Chestnut Road to the west. So and there's lots of, we go into this in some slides, but if your organization is located in the cultural district, then you would be going for funding from the 80% pool. So remember that the 80% pool are for events that occur in the cultural district, or if your organization is located in the cultural district, it is automatically in the 80% pool of money as well. There's more on the cultural district coming up. So we'll talk a little bit more of that 80-20 split. So 80% of our funds for Cultural Star go to nonprofits and unincorporated groups in and or with projects in the cultural district of downtown, as I just said. So you could have an organization that's located outside of that red boundary, but if your event is occurring inside the cultural district, you would be eligible for the 80% pool of money. It's important to note because these are areas where people like to have events, but the State Capitol Building and the Minnesota History Center currently are not in the cultural district. They're just outside the boundaries. On our websites, in the application, everywhere we have this cultural district locator map. It's hard for me to show it to you in person during my presentation, but if you have any question about, is my venue in the cultural district, is my organization located in the cultural district, you just click on these maps that we have and you just plug in your address and it will tell you, it'll just zero in where your organization is so you can tell whether you're in or out. The remaining 20% of funds that we have for cultural district will go to businesses in the cultural district, enhancing visitor enjoyment of downtown. So for-profit businesses, or any nonprofit with a project in St. Paul, but outside of the cultural district. So if you have an organization that is based outside the cultural district, and your event is not going to happen in the cultural district, you would be going for the remaining 20% of funds. Any questions about the cultural district?
washed away. No, it's just that there is concern of this rising, increasing flooding crisis in the region. And
Does it look like we have any, or should I keep moving on?
Looks like we've got a hand raised and then a few questions in the chat. The first
Okay.
question I'm seeing in the chat says, question about the cultural district. Is the 100 block of Water Street in the cultural district? This is where the FOK Arts building is located. It's near the southern boundary on the map.
Can you guys all see this, Grace and Nancy?
Yes.
Okay, so it worked. I'm just going to take us here. So I am going to show you in real time how to figure it out. So it's 100 Water Street. Got it?
The 100 block of Water Street.
So here I'm going to click it. Of course, you're going to pick a location that looks like it's right on the boundary line. So it looks like it is. I mean,
If you have a specific address, then
it would help us.
it will be a little more accurate to pull it up on the map.
Let me know if we get a,
106
okay.
Water Street. Yep.
I think this is right outside. So here's what so this is in real time. I'm glad we're doing this. So all of a sudden it'll pinpoint where your location is. And if you go into the circle of where your organization is and you click it, now you'll see a search result. And there's one of three kind of pages of information. The first one is just showing you the address we pulled up. And next it'll show you that it's in Ward 2. Your council member is Rebecca Naker, and gives some information on how to contact Ward 2. And then if you go to the arrow to 3 of 3, it will tell you district councils. So this is the West Side. This is West Side Community Organization is your district council. And it tells you what planning district you're in. So it gives you a lot of information. In this case, I feel like it looks more like it's out, Nancy. But I like that we're getting an example where we're right on the line.
Yeah, it looks like it's right outside of the cultural district.
Yeah,
So if it
so-
had been on the side of the street closer to the river, then it would have, I think it would fall within the cultural
yeah.
district, but it falls right outside of that. So
Look at us. Now we're just zooming, using all our tools. So yes, outside.
And then there's a question before that that asks, if we have a project idea that includes an event in the cultural district and an event outside the district, how will it be reviewed?
Great question. These are really great questions. It would come out of the 80% pool. If you have at least one of your events public facing in the cultural district and a couple of them are out, because you have at least one in, you would be going after the 80%.
All right. And Robbie, does that
Any-
answer your question? I see your hand raised as well, but I know you put it in the chat as well.
Just forgot to take it down.
No problem.
No, that's perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and then there is one more question, Jessica, in the chat.
Sure.
I'm seeing, good morning, question. So fiscally sponsored projects cannot receive funding within this category. To clarify, fiscally sponsored entities not located within.
Grace, you muted. I'm not
Sorry.
hearing Grace. Okay.
Did you hear the question or was I muted?
I think I
before
did.
that?
I lost you, but I think I did. These are all great questions and we get to this one soon, but I'll answer it now. If you are an unincorporated group or artist that is attaching themselves with a fiscal sponsor, the rules that apply are that the fiscal sponsor itself doesn't have to be in the cultural district of St. Paul. It could be anywhere in St. Paul, but your event would have to be inside the boundaries of the cultural district. no matter what. That's the hard and fast rule. So you would be going after the 80%. Yeah, the 80%, but your event would have to occur in the cultural district. Does that help? I'm going to move on a little bit with guideline summaries, and these are several slides, so I will go through all the guideline summaries, and it isn't all of them, just highlights, and then we can do another pause. So for special projects and organizational development projects, the way we usually run the program and get you contracted is that 80% would be advanced once the contract is signed. And then the final 20% you would get after your project is complete and all the reporting is complete. Now, there is an exception that if the project is completed prior to the execution of a contract, so before you even know if you get recommended, but your event occurred in August, September, October, November even, and it was finished, then at the sole discretion of the city, we could elect to pay out 100% of your STAR fund at one time, provided that you as the organization submit and comply with all the requirements for both the initial 80% disbursement and the final 20% disbursement. Then we would just not advance 80. So in essence, what happens is you get under contract and then right away we close you out. So, and then we would get you 100% of your grant at once. That's on the sole discretion of the city. So it may not happen every time, but if there's a compelling reason, and usually if your event already happened, that's a pretty compelling reason. Also, capital project funds are dispersed differently. They're dispersed as your project expenses are incurred. So it isn't any 80% advance going on if you have a capital project. And we'll throw our website up every once in a while on these slides. All of this information and more is at our program guidelines at our website, which is www.stpaul.gov/cultural-star. Again, we are nailing down our eligibility project dates, August 1st, 2025 through July 31st, 2026, and July 31st, 2027 for capital projects. There is a minimal request of $5,000. We used to, if you are a longstanding cultural STAR recipient or have had in the past, you'll know that in the past we did have a matching grant program for all levels of grants. And we have since, for the last few years, taken that out of the equation unless you're, oops, if you could mute yourself. And the only exception there is if your grant request is over 50,000, it will require a one-to-one matching fund. So for example, if you're at 50,500, you must have funds from other sources adding another 50,500 to your project for a total budget of at least 101,000. So if you are at 50,000, you're fine. If you're at $50,001, you will have to have the matching fund. And then a few rules, I would say, for the guidelines are that because there is a smaller pool with the 20%, we do have one exception to funding, and that if you are a St. Paul-based nonprofit, but you are outside of the cultural district, there is an opportunity for you to be eligible to receive 2 awards per year. One would have to be a project that happens in the cultural district, and one project would have to happen outside the cultural district. And so I think we had one organization last year that was funded for 2 and maybe one the year before. So it's just a way for people to have a chance at more money with the 20% pool being smaller for anyone outside the cultural district. And we have a rule in place right now that we only allow 3 consecutive years of getting special projects or organizational development funded in a row. So if you have been funded 3 years in a row, we usually send an email out letting you know that this is your year off. And so that 4th year, you take a year off and then you could start getting funded again. And in that year off, we do allow for capital projects to be proposed. So you could still have an application in for a capital project in that off year. And then we just answered this for the person earlier, but an unincorporated arts group, an individual artist must use a fiscal sponsor organization that is a 501c3 nonprofit arts organization located in St. Paul. It can't be located in Minneapolis, but 100% of the project must take place in the cultural district. Okay, so those are some guideline summaries. There are so many and they're on our website, but if there are any questions about the last 3 slides and information I covered, why don't you put your hand up or put it in the chat, and Grace and Nancy can let me know.
I do see a question in the chat, Jessica. It asks, I don't see a maximum request amount. Do you have recommended max amount for budget requests of special project applications?
Sure, there isn't. You're going to have to do a match beyond $50,001. I will say Cultural Star generally doesn't give out that amount of money. We get far less money than Neighborhood Star just by virtue of the percentage of the sales tax that goes toward Cultural Star. So the board tries to stretch it as far as they can. So for instance, and this, I can't say how it would be this year, but in 2024, 24,000 was the highest amount anyone got. So I would just have in your minds that partial funding is real, and some projects will get fully funded based, there's usually some sort of formula the board goes through when they're deliberating. But I would say there is no cap. I'd say it would be unusual for somebody going for a ton of money to get funded because they're really trying to spread it out. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Anything else we should cover right away, Grace and Nancy, on questions?
Nothing right now.
Okay. All right, let's keep it moving. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our Cultural Star Board. This is 9 members of the community that are appointed by the mayor's office, and it's comprised, when it's full, is 9 members, and 2 representatives are from large cultural organizations. We have 2 representatives from mid-sized cultural organizations. We have 1 representative from a small cultural organization, 1 rep from a philanthropic organization, 1 rep from a St. Paul business community, and 2 at-large seats. And then furthermore, at least 5 of the board members must be residents of St. Paul, and the remaining 4 board members must work or live in St. Paul. And at least 1 of the board members must represent a neighborhood organization. So we really try to have a really good mix of folks from all sorts of different sized cultural organizations, as well as people who are connected to the community with neighborhood organizations, and philanthropic organizations and the business community. So our hope is to always have a very well-rounded group of individuals. There is a lot of information on our website about the board. If you're interested in learning more about it, there's a picture of our board on there. And we also have some openings. So if you're investigating and you're looking at the information on the website and you have interest, please reach out because we do have some open seats. I also like to point out at this point that the board is advisory. So if you are familiar with the program and recommendations come out from the mayor and council, they might look different than the recommendations that were given by the board. And that is because it's an advisory board. There's always room for the mayor and council to tweak as they see fit. And but for the most part, if you're recommended by the board, I've never seen, and since I've been here, anyone have funding taken away. It just might be given a haircut if there's other things the mayor and council had priorities on. So I like to point that out. It's advisory. I also like to point out that as a STAR team, we're here to support you in the program, but we have nothing to do with ranking you. We make sure that the applications are eligible, and then we pass them off to the advisory board. But any questions about the program, we can help support in all those ways. We don't rank them ourselves. So once you have an application and it's eligible and it goes to the board, what are they looking for? This is probably one of the biggest factors for folks who have the most questions. And the application is pretty, I'd say, easy to follow. There's a lot of questions, but a lot of them are quick until you get to the evaluation criteria narrative questions, and there are 4. So most questions will be just a quick click something or do a short paragraph, and here will be longer narrative questions. Evaluation criteria fall under impact, ability, quality, diversity. They're each 5 points is the max you can get on each of these. They're weighted equally. So the max score you could get on your application is a 20. And I have a little more information. This is actually taken right from the guidelines and application and website, but just to give a little bit more of an idea, what we're looking for is for you to give us the best picture you can of what you're trying to do. It's sort of the basics of like kind of who, what, where, when, how. Like, how are you going to do this? And that will help us see, in essence, your full project. So on impact, we want you to convey how the project will benefit St. Paul. How will it increase access to different art forms and cultural offerings? How will it address cultural needs, and how will it reach audiences? And then when you're talking about quality, they're looking for you to clearly describe your goals and your strong goals, but usually goals are strong. And they want to see your plan to achieve them so that you will have a successful project. Next, narrative is about ability. How, an ability like a strong proposal will be you describing your project with clearly defined plans that could include, doesn't have to include all this, but it could include timeline, could include personnel, your publicity plan, your financial support that demonstrates that the project will be implemented successfully. And the final narrative is diversity. It sort of has 2 parts to it. One part is describing your project and how it will be accessible and inclusive of audiences and add to the artistic and cultural diversity of our city of St. Paul, and or how to increase the ability of your organization to be accessible and inclusive and diversify cultural offerings. So when you get to this part in the application, there are prompts and guiding questions, and they're there basically just to help you start getting yourself to answer the narrative. They're just there to be helpful. You don't have to answer every prompt that they're listing. They just are there to help you sort of get your narrative out. So use it as that. Don't get stressed out by all the prompts and thinking you have to fit everything in there. Just use it as a guide. Okay, I'm going to pause here if there are questions about the criteria.
I see one question in the chat right now, Jessica. I didn't see any character limits for these narrative elements of the evaluation criteria on the PDF example of the application. Are there character limits?
Grace, do you want to just read the question and answer it?
I can answer this one. There is a character limit in Zoom grants for your responses. So I believe right now we have the character limit set to 2,500 characters, and that limit does include punctuation marks and spaces. This will probably be covered later during the Zoom grants presentation as well. But when you are typing in your response, or if you're copying and pasting from a Word document or something like that, Zoom grants will not allow special formatting either. So you just want to make sure that you're removing any bullet points, underline, bold text, things like that. So just keep that in mind as you're typing up your responses there. But yes, there is a character limit, and I believe right now it's set to 2,500 characters.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other questions before I move on to insurance? We can answer at the Q&A at the end as well. Insurance requirements. And Nancy or Grace or Naya, can you let me know? I'm not sure if Michael Cowell joined us today because I can't see the full room as I present. And if not, I will just go through the screen.
It doesn't look like Michael's on the call.
Okay. Okay, so Michael Cowell is our risk management person we work with for insurance. So whether you have a organizational development, a special project, or a capital project, we do have insurance requirements through the city. You need to carry general or business liability insurance that ensures that the city of St. Paul as an additional insured with the following coverage minimums. So we usually, when we get you under contract, we send you the template for insurance that shows you each of the areas and where we need you to be. So auto insurance for vehicles used for the project beyond commuting to and from the project should be included. A lot of times people if you have an event and you're using cars just to get to the event and back, you don't have to include car insurance, auto insurance in this insurance requirement. We do ask that you have verification of workers' comp though, and employer's liability coverage or a form indicating why the organization is exempt. So either include it, and if it isn't included in your the certificate of insurance, we will have you fill out a workman's compensation form for us. And it's important to make sure your insurance covers all dates with your project scope. So oftentimes we have to go back and forth with an organization because the dates don't quite cover it all. And so just be very cognizant of just that and making sure that your insurance covers the beginning of your project all the way through the project. And if you have questions about the city's insurance requirements, you can contact Michael. We give his information below. And a phone number to reach him. I have just one slide on compliance because oftentimes Cultural Star Awards don't meet the threshold for compliance, but it's important to share the information. That part of your filling out an application in the required documents section will require you to fill out a form that says you understand compliance. So it's just a one-pager here. Federal, state, local regulations and policies pertaining to the use of funds such as prevailing wage standards, affirmative action, and targeted vendor programs may apply to your project. The amount of the award and the nature of the project determine which regulations apply. So for example, the vendor outreach program, which we call VOP, gets attached to grant awards if they're over 50,000. And if they're over 50,000, we like to maximize contracting opportunities for minority-owned and women-owned and small business enterprises. Another example would be labor standards. Capital projects with total project budgets over 25,000 would hit the threshold for labor standards, and then contractors would be required to pay union level wages in that case. So organizations receiving grants must comply with all federal, state, and local laws, rules, regulations in connection with your project, including but not limited to the St. Paul Vendor Outreach Program. It is important to understand that compliance requirements may affect hiring practices and wage rates. So the Cultural Star team likes to tell you that applicants are strongly cautioned to not make any commitments until compliance requirements and funding regulations are fully understood. So I often tell people, if you end up getting recommended and it's over 25,000, you're going to have a project manager assigned to your project that will work with you. And right away, we can talk to you about whether compliance requirements are if we're hitting those thresholds or not. So it's a lot of information. And usually they aren't necessary for Cultural Star because the awards don't usually always hit those thresholds. And we like to just add a slide that has our vendor outreach and affirmative action and prevailing wage experts at the city. And now I am going to introduce our guest, Jennifer Yost. She is our account member with Zoom Grants. I am going to stop sharing my presentation briefly and let Jennifer share her screen, and she is going to talk to you all about Zoom Grants. Welcome, Jennifer. I'll give Jennifer just a minute.
She's on mute.
Oh, Jennifer, it sounds like you're on mute. Or it doesn't sound. I'm trying to find her in this list. All right, Jennifer, if you can hear me, we are ready for the
Can
Zoom.
you hear me?
Okay, yes, now we can.
Oh, fabulous.
Welcome.
Okay, so my name is Jennifer Yost, and I am with Zoom Grants, and I have been working with the city on their programs. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through how to sign in and how to submit your application. For those of you that have used the program in the past, there are a few changes since last year, so I do specifically want to call those out for you. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to go to the presentation, and then I'm going to actually do the live demonstration into the program with that. So just one moment, and let me share my screen. Okay, so I just want to make sure you are seeing a how-to guide for applicants.
We are.
Okay, I want to make sure I shared the right screen and not my emails. So this is available on the city's website, so no need to scribble this down. You will have access to this information. So just a few things to keep in mind from the very beginning. Zoom Grants University is our online knowledge base. This is your user guide. Is available 24/7. You'll always be able to access it through the help link, as well as the city has actually put that directly on their website as well. Zoom Grants has an auto-save feature. You will not find a save button anywhere within the system. So that gives some people anxiety. It gives me anxiety still after all these years of not having that save button. So what will happen is when you click outside of the field, you'll see a saving screen. Please note this is over the internet, and the internet is one of those things that likes to glitch every once in a while. So if you do see the saving screen still flashing after a few seconds, is most likely the internet connection has blinked for some reason, and you will need to double click out of it anywhere on the screen and then try to save again. Please note that if it does continue to flash, it is not saving your data. So just making sure of that. Do not continue on until you do a refresh. The tab, we do work on a tab system, so you can look at different parts and different sections of the application at any time, and that's where it's housed. There is going to be a check for completion. At the end of your application, you'll be submitting your application. Zoom Grants will do an automatic check to ensure that you've completed all the required components. That means that every question has an answer in it, even if the answer is not applicable, and that every document that is marked as required has been uploaded. Please note some of the documents only apply to you if you have a certain type of project. So if it's a capital project and it's only required for that, you do need to read all of those and make sure that you're uploading the appropriate documents. To get started, first thing is you're going to do is create your account. Please do not go to Zoom Grants website to create your account. You must use the link provided by the city on their website so that you are signing into their account and having access to their program. So make sure you do that. If you have an account from previous years, you can just use the existing one and be able to sign right back in. Same way of just clicking on the button that is on the city's website to access the program that is available. So when you get into your program, you are going to find two levels as tabs. That top level of tabs, which is marked as an A on this screen, are going to be your informational tabs. It's going to give you information about the program, the link to contact your administrators, any announcements if they posted them, as well as instructions. The second level tabs, which is marked as B, is the actual application tabs. They may be called something different than you're seeing on the screen, but it gives you the actual tabs of navigating through the application to be able to answer those questions. In the application summary, this is where you're putting in your contact information. Please note when you put in your application, your contact information, that is going to be auto-populated from your account. So if you do change your information, you've changed your last name, you have a new email address, it does change it throughout all of your application. And again, every field is required. The C-STAR program is not going to use the pre-application, so I'm actually going to skip over this page, but it is available if you have more, maybe you have questions about it. The application tab is where you're going to have most of the questions. Please note that this program is using a branching question, which means that based upon your answer to this multiple choice question will determine which questions will actually appear. So some of the questions will disappear if you are not applying for a capital project. And I will show you how that works in the system. At any time, of course, you can print your application to hand it to anybody in the office who needs to review it and get make any suggested edits to your application. The budget tab. Budget tab is going to be used. This does include a new feature in the system, which requires you to certify that you've completed the budget. And that's because not every field is required for every budget. You have all these fields, but you're maybe only doing staffing and marketing. So all the other fields are not required. But now that there is a certification, you must certify that you have completed that budget. It lets the city know that you've reviewed everything and you do consider that budget complete. And I will show you how to do that. Tables is not being used in this program, so I am going to skip over this slide and go right to the documents. The documents tab is where you're going to upload everything that is required for your project. We'll provide the additional information to the city so that they can make their reviews and due diligence of making those recommendations to the elected officials. When you are ready to submit your application, you are going to click that Submit Now button. And this is where it's going to do that certification that it is complete. And if it is complete, it's going to take it and it's going to be submitted, and you're going to get a screen that says it's been submitted. If there is something missing, it is going to come up in red and say something is missing. I do want to point out that if you are not seeing a Submit Now button, is because you have not been given, you are not the applicant. You are someone that's been invited by the applicant to help work on the application. So we call those collaborators, because there might be someone you want to get in to help with the budget. You have someone you want to upload all the documents while you're working on the narratives. So multiple people from an organization can be working on one single application, but only the applicant, the main contact, is the person that can actually click that submit button. So just wanted to make that clear that not everybody can submit, only that main applicant. So if you do not see it, it's because you are a collaborator and you need to reach out to the applicant and the main contact for them to actually submit that application. When you are working on your application, you do not have to do it all in one sitting. You can come back to it. So once you have created that initial application, you can just go back to your account and access the incomplete application to return to it and continue to work on it. So you don't have to start a new application, just go back to it. I do want to point out that you do need to use the entire URL, HTTPS. That S is very, very important. The S is a certification link that allows you to look at the documents, download the documents, and use all the features of Zoom Grants. Without that S, it is not allowing you to fully use it. So accessing, you always come back. I'm going to skip over this because this is about approved. Once you've been approved, so that won't happen until much later. And but you can return to any of your applications if they've been approved or declined within your account and see that information. So if you have last year's application, like I really liked how we wrote up our mission or what our organization is, you wanted to copy that information and put it back in, you can. You can also archive and delete unsubmitted applications. So if you accidentally did create a secondary application and you actually want to get rid of it, we have a two-step process. You first have to archive the application, and then you actually can permanently delete it. Once it's deleted, we cannot recover it. But once you archive it, you are telling the system you do not want the city to see it or see anything about it. And so you are removing it from their them being able to view that you even created an application. So I do want to point that out. So tips from our team: save yourself the stress. Start early, finish early, submit early. There is no penalty for submitting early. As the city says, when you have 500 people trying to get into this one program to submit on that very last day, it can bog down the system. So definitely complete your application early and submit. So and reach out to Zoom Grants at any time for any technical issues. And then of course the city for any programmatic questions. Any questions that you pose to us about the program, we will refer you back to the city because we can't answer those because we don't know if things have changed. And technical assistance, you can always go to Zoom Grants University, which is help.zoomgrants.com. But the link is actually within the system as well. Or you can contact our support at questions@Zoom Grants. With that, I'm actually going to go into the program and create an application so you can see how it actually functions. So, some of us learned that way. So that's where I'm going to go now. And so you are going to start with the city's website. That's where you need to start. And you're going to have this start your application here. But before I click on that, I actually am going to scroll down and I'm going to point out where this material is found on the city's website. Learn about the application process there, but the technical assistance of Zoom Grant. This is where you have a copy of this presentation as well as a step-by-step guide for those that are creating a brand new account, as well as a link to the FAQs and the Zoom Grants University. So it's right on the website. You don't even have to have an account yet to get this information from the city. So once you are ready to start, you're going to go right at the top and start your application. When you click on that button, it is going to take you to this screen right here. It is the City of St. Paul's landing page within the Zoom Grants database. It will have where you can, for existing Zoom Grants users, you can input your information there. If you do not remember your password from last year, you can follow your own self-help to reset your password. You do have to have access to the email account you used last year. For those of you that are new, you are going to use your email address. Your email is your user ID, a password, first name, last name, and click that new account. It's going to then refresh, create that account, and you're going to be able to come right here and hit that apply button. The apply button is going to create the application. Once you've done that, it will take you to this screen right here. This is the Cultural Star Programs application. You're going to see the different instructional tabs that are available. Show the contact, and you're going to see Zoom Grants Help. These are the common questions that we get from individuals. How to create a new application. As they said, you could potentially be creating two applications. What to do if the saving screen is still flashing. What to do if you've missed that deadline. As a reminder, the city says they are not allowing you to edit your application after you've submitted it, so make sure you've done it correctly. How to invite collaborators to work on your application. This is if you are having other people help you. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to read your instructions, of course. You're going to give a name to your application, and I am putting it as a Z test application, so the city knows that this is a fake application. You can see that screen is flashing. And now it's gone away. That means it has saved it. I'm going to put in how much I'm requesting. And because I have my account and I've set it all up already, it's going to autofill the applicant information and my organizational information, as well as my CEO and executive director information. So these three sets of information is set up in your account. So it will auto-populate. So those of you that applied in previous years, but maybe the executive director has changed, you will need to update that information. Down below on this page is where you invite collaborators. If you are funded and want to invite others or update access of your existing collaborators, you're going to come back to this same screen and you're going to add additional collaborators and give them access. Right now, they only have access to the application. If you are approved, you can provide access to the other post-decision components of the application. But you're going to put in their email, first name, last name, title. Make sure to click that edit access box. If you don't click that box, it will not do anything, and invite them. Do not invite yourself. If you invite yourself, it will freeze your access to this application, and you will have to reach out to Zoom Grants to have you yourself removed as a collaborator because it overwrites your access. So do not put yourself as a collaborator, please. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to go into the application questions. The city has given a lot of information. The text boxes are about plain text using numbers, symbols, letters, spaces, character returns, all count as characters. As many people will use, they'll use Word to help create their answers. All of us do it. But do not format that. Don't bold, italicize, underline, bullet points, because those formatting does have characters that are hidden that does not play nice with the database. So making sure that you copy and create it as plain text. Within Zoom Grants University, there is a Zoom Grants article on formatting application questions responses to help you so that you can make the text appear a little bit fancier if you want. So that first question we have in here is we have embed a short video, YouTube video to your project if you'd like. This is not required, but you do have to put in an answer even if it's NA. So if you do want to embed a video, we do give you the instructions of how to put that information and provide it to the city. You will need to, in project summary, question number 1 is the branching question. Based upon your answer, if you're a special project or organizational development or a capital project, will determine which questions you have to answer. And the city has notated that questions 9 through 12 will only appear for capital projects. So the numbering will appear out of order. So you are going to put in the information. I'm just going to put here because we do want that question to show up appropriately. So when you are doing trying to create lists, you can use all caps to create headers within a text, hyphens, letters, and numbers can be used to create lists. Asterisks can highlight certain words, so those are ways to modify and have a type of formatting within the system. Do not copy the formatting though. Actually type those in. When question number 4 asks about the council wards of your project is located, you will get a similar question below. They'll ask about council wards where your organization is located. So please keep those 2 separate. The questions that we have available is you have multiple choice, which is select one, and check boxes. Their shapes do mean something. The boxes are select all that apply, and the circles are check only once. You do have paragraph style questions. There is a character counter, which will tell you what your max characters are and how many characters you have left. Again, the city has stated spaces, character returns are all counted as characters. So those of us who are old school that are used to putting a double space after a period, maybe only put 1 space after a period. We have short answer questions. These are about a sentence long, and they are 255. Again, it will count your characters. So there's something to help you. And so there are a lot of questions that are down below, going through all of them that the cities are gone through. So I'm not really going to talk about them, but you have all of that information that you do need to respond to. You do have to fill out every space. So if the question does not apply to you, please type in not applicable or NA. You have to answer every question or it will not allow you to submit. Now I'm going to go to the budget page. In the budget, of course, we have the instructions from the city. And so you have the item descriptions that the city has outlined as well as some other. You're going to input your secured funding and the amount you're requesting. Because I did put on the first page, I'm doing $20,000. I'm going to put it here. So you can see that the income and then our revenues, how you're going to spend the STAR expenses and what the other funding is. Please note that the money should match and the system will auto total for you so you can see that. There is a place for a budget narrative where you can put that information in, and it's a maximum character of 3,000 characters. This is new for those that have been in the system before. We do have a certification here. This is part of the completion check. If you do not sign this, the system will not allow you to submit the application. So I'm going to actually sign this, and I'm going to go on to the next. There is a next button at the top, at the bottom, but you can also use the tab at the top. Then we have our required informations. Is that you have your required documents, and you'll also see optional and required for capital. So if you do have a capital project, make sure to upload that document there. I do have one that's not here specifically because I want to show you what it looks like when you submit and it's not all complete. So I think I'm done. I'm going to hit that submit now button, and it says there's fields missing. It will tell you what fields are missing. In this case, a required document is missing. If I had skipped question number 2, it would tell me question number 2 is missing. So I'm going to go, oops, I'm going to go and upload that document. So I'm going to actually show you how to upload. You're going to click the upload button. You're going to give a name to that file. You're going to go and locate the file on your computer and choose that file that you're wanting to upload. You can see a lot of different file extensions can be used. So Doc, Excel, PDFs, JPEGs can all be uploaded. Please note the file size is limited to 4 megabytes. If you have a very large document, you may want to consider breaking it up into 2. Multiple documents can be uploaded into one document slot. It's called Part 1, Part 2 to help the city understand. Once you've completed that document, you're going to click the Upload Now. And it's going to flash for a minute. The page will refresh when it is uploaded. And it'll say your file has been uploaded. You can test the link for your document, closing the window now. If you do click on this and you did not use the HTTPS, you will not be able to see that document. So make sure you use that HTTPS. And I'll say this list will be updated when the page is refreshed. Once I do a refresh, it will update that information, and the submit now where it says something is missing will be gone. And you can see now that document is sitting right there. And now I'm going to click that submit now button, and it's going to say everything is fabulous. The application is complete. You are going to certify that you are allowing Zoom Grants to share this information with the city, and that it is all truthful and accurate to the best of your knowledge. You're going to input your initials and click that submit now. And then it's going to give you a screen that says it has been submitted. You also will be able, you can download a PDF at this time. You'll receive a confirmation email from notices@zoomgrant.com. Please make sure that is on your whitelist or your approved list for your emails, as all the notifications from Zoom Grants and any of the notifications coming from the city that are sending through Zoom Grants comes from notices@Zoom Grants. So I will receive an email. And now also when I go into my account, I will also be able to see that this application is now in my submitted side. One moment. So this is my account. I have my incompletes. And now I have, I gotta find it. Sorry, we have a lot of demos. It's in here somewhere. Oh, that's approved. I need to go to submitted. My apologies. City of St. Paul. There's that submitted application right there. So it's confirmation it's been submitted. You can see the date it was submitted and what time based on Pacific Standard Time. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. I recognize we're over time, but we're just going to keep rolling. There's only a few quick slides after Jennifer's, but if anyone has Zoom Grants questions, it's We feel lucky to have Jennifer here. Thank you so much for going through that, Jennifer. I think super helpful, especially for new applicants, to sort of see that it's not super scary and it's pretty user friendly. So any other questions? Anyone have questions on the information from Zoom grants? And again, if you later today or tomorrow or next week, think of one, you can always reach out to us at the city and we can find the answer for you. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go back to sharing my screen. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
There is one question in the chat,
Okay.
which is, can you include hyperlinks in the grant?
So you can include the link, but it will not be a hyperlink. So, so copying the URL, placing it in there, and then the city can actually copy it and put it into their browser to be able to go to that link, but it won't be like an actual interactive hyperlink.
Thanks, Naya, for seeing that question. Any more? All right, I'm going to start sharing again, just to go through the last few slides. Go. Okay. So next is just talking about our deadline again, May 2nd. Interviews, these are all next steps, will be May, June. And if like in an interview, they're short. I think there were 7 minutes last year. So they will go fast. And mostly the interview portion is for you to provide updates. You can respond to clarifying questions. As sometimes when you're doing an application, you might not have had confirmation yet on your venue. That's something that could be covered in an interview. So those sorts of things. And the board will have all reviewed your applications, obviously know that, and spent time looking through them and studying them before you come in for your interview. So they have questions all teed up. So that is that. Okay, so Jennifer mentioned it during her Zoom grants, but new this year and that we haven't done before is that once your application is submitted, there will be no opportunity to go back in and revise. The city doesn't have capacity to do the back and forth anymore. Most grant programs, all grant programs are do this. It's just you have to have everything ready to go to be eligible. If you don't upload all the necessary documents, your application will be ineligible. So make sure that when you get to the required document section, that you are inputting everything. We saw it on on Jennifer's little tutorial there, all the section. But again, I just can't reiterate enough. Just go. The reason we are not going to do that is that we want you to do this ahead of time. So when you're filling out your application, if you have questions, email, call us. We're going to give you all of our contact information. We want you to have all the information so that you're ready to submit and you have everything. Now, if there's a slight error and you put down the wrong ward or something like that, that isn't going to automatically shift your application to ineligible. We could probably make that small change. But if you don't have one of the documents, it will automatically just go into an ineligible pile. So we really want to underline and underscore that this year, and so that you are prepared and not surprised. Here is our contact information. This whole presentation will be on our website. So you can go back and review it at your pace, or if you need to know what all of our contact information is and phone numbers, they are listed here. Mainly me and Nancy. Grace is available, but we're not going to list her right now because she's sort of hopping between 2 programs. So Nancy and I will answer all your questions. And there's my fancy last slide, questions. So if there are any questions that you didn't get answered, I know we're over time. We're going to stay on for a few minutes. And so that we can answer anything that has come to mind. And if you have to peel off, I understand it. Thank you for staying the length of the presentation today. And I'm opening up the floor for anything else you can think of. Is everyone feeling ready? Excited? Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm not seeing. See the gallery here.
To clarify, clarification.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Fickle sponsors have to be within the cultural district, correct?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
The Fickle sponsors have to be within the zone. Is that what I was told? Just want to make
No,
sure.
the fiscal sponsor can be anywhere in St. Paul, but your event or project would have to happen in the cultural district.
Got it. Okay. I just want clarification. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem.
And it looks like Mary Ann reshared a note in the chat from earlier. Mary Ann, I don't know if you had a chance to see Nancy's response, but she said that the question is really asking for a brief project update if you were awarded in 2024. So it doesn't need to be lengthy. Just respond to the question to the best of your ability, detailing the current status of your project and the outcomes you hope to achieve within that character limit.
Great. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Nancy.
And then I do see another question in the chat, Jessica, asking where in the application do we provide work samples? And is there a format for the work sample?
So work samples. I might need more clarification on what you're asking. Ken, can you elaborate just a little bit so I understand more how to answer this? I think Ken is working on it. Okay, in the meantime, while Ken, I'm not gonna leave Ken out to dry, but I just would like a little more elaboration. We don't ask for work samples, so I'm trying to figure out where you would, if indeed that's what you're talking about, where you would do that, or if there is a place to do that. In the meantime, any other questions, please feel free to type them in the chat or raise your hand. We don't currently, and Nancy or Grace can correct me, but we don't currently have a section in the application to include work samples. In the documentation section, I'm trying to think if there is an area to upload that, but I don't.
The only area, oh, sorry, Jessica.
No, go for it.
I was going to say the only area I can think of that maybe is speaking to what you're asking, Ken, is an optional upload section in the documents, optional to upload documents to support your proposal, such as letters of support, photos, press clippings, and other marketing materials from your organization, organizational or annual reports, etc.
You got it, Ken. Any other questions? Got it. Another question. If there's time, do I need to have a fiscal sponsor at the time that I submit the application? So you will need to fill out the application saying who usually by this time you would have reached out to someone. So we did have a couple of cases last year where there are certain fiscal sponsors out there that review requests like certain times of the month. And we did have one or two that had to apply not knowing exactly the answer, but the answer was hopefully going to be yes. And so they uploaded that information when there's in the document section there's an if you're an artist or an unincorporated group in the required documents, there is number 7 says you have to upload the letter of intent from the fiscal sponsor. So in that case, I would upload probably the letter you sent requesting the fiscal sponsor and explain on there that they're going to review it mid-month in May and you're waiting to hear. I mean, you would have to just be clear, call us. What I'll say is just if you have any question about whether you're uploading the right information, call us or email us because we want to see everyone be eligible to move on to the board reviewing your application as possible. So just call and ask. But in that case, I would upload what your request was, the actual letter you sent to the fiscal sponsor. And that did happen once last year. And then by the time the interview happened, they were able to confirm that the fiscal sponsor is in place. Okay, I'm reading Ken's follow-up that says that he plans on using Springboard for the Arts and have contacted them and they are willing to be the fiscal sponsor for his project. They have an application fee of $100 to be a fiscal sponsor, plus they take a percentage of the grant. I would prefer to pay them once I learn whether my Cultural Star grant is approved or not. I actually don't quite know how to answer that. Just with my limited experience with the program, Nancy, I might lean on you in that case. In the past, you have to, the $100 fee is paid no matter what, whether you get recommended or not. Is that true? Nancy or Grace, do you have, otherwise Ken, I can get back to you.
Just from my perspective, I don't know how Springboard for the Arts exactly handles the fiscal sponsorship process. Their application fee of $100, I see the note from Ken about that. What I will say is that the Cultural Star grant can be used to pay for that fiscal sponsorship fee. And we would need to, if you are awarded funds, we would need to know that you have a secured fiscal sponsor before we would be able to get under contract with you. So you may want to consider that as you're filling out the application, knowing that you would be able to lock in a fiscal sponsor by the time funding decisions are made. Does that help to answer the question? Jessica, anything to add from that?
No, I think mainly the situation I want to avoid is applying for the cultural grant and not losing your $100 fee. Yeah, I don't know. This is a circumstance I'm not sure how to answer. I know Nancy's having trouble with her mic. So Nancy, if you could type, if you know a better way to answer this. I understand you don't want to lose your $100. So I'm not sure of how Springboard for the Arts works with a fiscal sponsor on that fee, if they'll, wait and to have it paid until you've been recommended or not. And Ken, if we can't answer it now, we will get back to you. So I want to state that. And you can ask Springboard. That sounds great. Okay. You're welcome, Ken. Any other questions?
This is Carrie. See, I have one real quick question again. Now, you talked about the fiscal sponsorship, okay? And then did I hear correctly that if you're an actual fiscal sponsor, the people you're sponsoring's event has to be within the cultural district?
Yes.
So if we have, okay, so if an organization or a group or an art organization that isn't a 501c3 or whatever needs a fiscal sponsor, then they have to be located in the cultural district.
Well, are you talking about you being the fiscal sponsor, Carrie?
Yeah, because we've done it quite a bit before for these dance groups and some other organizations in the east side and in the north end. Your chain has one, and we've done that for a long time. And by the way, Ken, we don't take an application fee. So we've done that because it's not a huge amount of money and not a huge amount of work. And I'm wondering if they would actually apply for this, if we could continue to be their fiscal sponsor. Because they're not
Right.
located in the arts corridor.
So what would need to happen is whatever their event was would have to happen in the cultural district.
Okay, all right, then this would not be an
Okay.
option for them.
Okay,
Thanks.
you're welcome. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. All right. I want to thank everyone. I know some people had to trail off because we're well over time, but thank you so much for joining. Again, I appreciate you attending, and I appreciate all the questions. And we're excited to see you apply. And I get a little notification when applications are submitted, and that always makes me smile. So in the meantime, if you have questions while you're filling out your application, please don't hesitate to contact us. And again, the presentation will be on our website given a day or two. And that's it. So thank you so much. I hope everyone can get outside and enjoy the sunshine today. Thank you.
Thank you.